How do you cut steel and other metal products? You use an angle grinder with an abrasive disc? We've got another idea for you. Just a few weeks ago, this company reached out to us and asked if we would try their metal cutting blades and said, hey, we're fine with you comparing it to whatever you do. Just use it in your shop and tell us what you think about it. And this is the OK Diamond Metal Plus cutting blade. Now they sell it in a 4.5-inch version. They also, I believe, have a 4-inch version. And then you can also get the 3-inch version as well for your smaller cutting tools, which is great to know. Anyway, they sent us several discs and said, have at it. So let's do that. Let's dive in, take a closer look at this wheel. Then we'll actually use it on several different tests. And then we'll come back and talk about pricing and what we thought of it. Well, as we mentioned, OK Diamond actually reached out to us and asked if we would try their cutting blades. And we shared with them that we typically use an abrasive blade when we're doing fabrication, when we're cutting steel and different types of product. And they said, that's fine. We've got a new blade and we feel like that you might like it. And they gave us some kind of characteristics to look for to differentiate between their cutting wheel and the typical abrasive blade. So that's what we're going to do. And by the way, this is not some piece of junk abrasive blade we're going to compare this against. This is, we think, one of the best blades out there. We get it from our welding supply house, and typically if you want good products when you're doing metalworking, go to the welding supply place. They're not going to put stuff on their hooks that the fabricators are not using. And this is their SAIT Z-Tech disc, and it's just a great cutting wheel. But we're just going to use this on some different things and put it head to head and see what we think about it, and you'll be along for the ride. Let's get started. Something you do have to consider, especially in a shop environment, is safety and the fact that a metal wheel like the OK Diamond Metal Plus, it has virtually zero flex at all and is not going to be bothered when it's tweaked a little bit one way or the other, as well as drop. So absolutely no flex in the Metal Plus blade, whereas your typical abrasive blade, there is going to be some flex, and you can even fragment this thing as well. So it's not like this thing is indestructible, and at 10,000 RPMs that becomes projectiles. And even when you look at drops from a grinder, and you're not going to have any issue with the Metal Plus blade, whereas with an abrasive blade, we already blew a chunk out of that one on one drop, and that's going to continue to get worse, and that's going to become a problem because now, again, we fragmented it, and that's going to continue to come apart the more we cut. First up is we've got a simple piece of 1-inch conduit on here, and we're just going to make a few cuts in this and see what we think with the OK Diamond wheel. And by the way, the grinder we're using is the Flex 24-volt brushless. It's got a 10-amp battery on it, or 10-amp-hour battery on here, so it should be able to last several cuts and should be an RPM that's pretty typical to what you're seeing, 8,500 to 10,000. Here we go. We'll make another pass. Curious a couple of things here. So the edge of that wheel is 100 degrees, 101. Yeah, that's about, 102, 105 is the hottest I'm seeing. Now it looks like that conduit is about 170. Yeah, so pretty warm on the end there, which I would expect. We just made several cuts on it. You can see I'm holding the blade. All right, we've got some typical 1-inch conduit here, and we've got an abrasive blade on here. Make a few cuts. After a few cuts, looks like the edge of that wheel is about 115 degrees. Maybe a little hotter. Yeah, it looks like I got like 138, 142 on that wheel. So right at the edge of that, we're definitely 130, 140 degrees. And on the conduit, yeah, 190. 185, 190 degrees on the end of that conduit. Now let's try one of the OK Diamond wheels. We'll let this cool off a minute. Okay, let's check this, and yeah, we're about down to ambient. It's about 90 degrees. It's not quite 90 in the shop, but still, I think we've got a good true reading here, between 90 and 100 degrees. And now let's use the OK Diamond wheel and see how hot it gets. I'll make 3 cuts on this as well. Okay, let's read the wheel. Looks like right at 110 degrees, right on the edge. Yeah, just 110, 112 degrees is the hot spot. 106 toward the hub, but right along the edge, I'm getting, there's a 116 is the hottest I got. So a little bit cooler, and you can see here, I can put my hand on here, no problem at all. It's not burning my hand. It's definitely warm, but it's not going to burn my skin. Now let's take a reading here. 130, 140. So it looks like it cuts a little cooler than the abrasive wheel does. So again, 130 degrees there, and that would probably on both of them would continue to compound, but definitely seeing a difference as far as cutting the metal as far as the temperature goes. Okay, we've gone to a little bit smaller of a pipe, but more of a construction type or fabrication type of metal. So we've basically got an 1/8 inch wall, 1 inch piece of tubing. So we're going to make a couple of cuts on this. So still about 110 degrees on the edge of that wheel. And we're, looks like we're a little over 200 degrees. A little more aggressive on that cut, putting a little force on it. So looks like 190, 200 degrees. So that's definitely going to burn you if you touch that. But let's throw the abrasive on and see what we think. Again, you can see I can hold the blade. It's not burning me. So 125, 130 degrees. They're on the edge of that. Oh, a little bit hotter than 140. So about 140 degrees on the edge of that. Yeah. So definitely a little bit warmer. Looks like it's cooling off pretty quickly though. And then as far as the metal goes, yeah, we're pushing, still pushing, 180, 190 on this one as well. So it looks like as the metal's getting thicker, it might kind of even out as far as temperature of the cutting surface, because it's probably taking the same amount of energy to cut through that. Let's make a few more cuts. Okay, I'm definitely noticing something. Look at the shower of sparks on this cutting wheel. So I'm getting tons of sparks out the backside, I'm getting tons out the tube, and then I'm even throwing some forward as well. But just a huge shower of sparks. I'm curious. Even though we're still getting a good amount of sparks, it's definitely less on the OK Diamond wheel. Definitely less. So we've got some all thread in there, something pretty typical in construction that you would be cutting. Let's try that. Okay, now the abrasive wheel and the same stuff. So I think the abrasive wheel is faster when it comes to this solid stuff. In fact, I know it's faster. I can just tell by the feel and by the look. But we're definitely throwing a lot more showers than with the metal cutting wheel. And again, this is staying quite cool. Now when I first took it off, it was pretty warm, but now it's already cooled off. course, this doesn't seem to retain heat either on your abrasive disc. But one thing I do notice is now my abrasive wheel is starting to shrink. So you can see there's some life gone in that cutting wheel already. All right, well, not that things are going to change much, but we've got a piece of 1-inch square tubing. Again, pretty typical 1/8-inch wall on here. Let's make some cuts. All right, let's cut it with the abrasive wheel. The abrasive wheel definitely throws a lot more sparks. And I've got one more thing I want to point out here in just one moment. And again, you can see how much that wheel is starting to shrink now. And that's going to happen faster and faster the smaller that gets, because it compounds itself. Because you have less surface area, the smaller that wheel gets to make that same cut. So therefore, you've got more friction, you've got more heat. All that's building out and compounding on itself and eating away that wheel, which gets in to my last point in just one moment here, and we'll show you. All right, now this is a very scientific test here, as you can see by the cardboard box. I mean, you just don't get these anywhere. No, here's our point here. We're going to make several cuts in this all thread. Let's just say 5. We're going to make 5 cuts with the abrasive wheel. We're going to look closely at our spark trail, as well as we're going to try to capture as much of that shrapnel that's coming off that wheel as we can in this box. And then we're going to test something else about the content of that shrapnel also. So let's get started. So again, 5 cuts with the abrasive wheel. All right, so there's 5 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am not going to pick those up as much as I'm tempted to, at least without my glove. So here's my point on this. Let me get rid of these out of the box here. Those are warm even with the glove on. All right. Get rid of those. And now you can see what we've left behind here, which is quite a bit. Now here's what I want to test. I've got a magnet. I want to see, so a lot of this is metal, but a lot of it isn't. By the way, this is a rare earth magnet, so it's very strong and picks up about anything that's got any iron in it at all. But what we've got left here is a ton of stuff, and even up here on this lid, that does not contain any of that. And that is that wheel going away. So that abrasive wheel is eroding, and you know, when you get those black boogers, it's not all metal and iron that's collecting in there. You're actually seeing this abrasive wheel degrade, and that's going airborne as well. Now let's see if we can prove that by making cuts with the other wheel. All right, let's take our wheel off for the final time. Put the OK Diamond wheel on here. And now we'll make the same amount of cuts, 5 cuts. So 5 cuts through that as well. Now I can tell you just by looking at it, the particulate that's in here looks larger. I know that sounds stupid, but it just looks like it has more body to it, which I think is probably more metallic. But anyway, here is the existing, this is from the abrasive wheel. And so I've got a clean magnet here. And I know we didn't capture all this, but I just wanted to see if there'd be a difference. And the abrasive wheel, for some reason, seems to have a lot larger pile of debris. Not sure why. Maybe we captured more of it. And again, it looks to be quite finer than the metal cutting wheel or the OK Diamond wheel as well. Not exactly a scientific comparison, but just something I wanted to take a look at. But you can definitely tell there's got to be, 2 times the particulate on the abrasive side as on the metal cutting wheel. And again, just the sparkle's different and the particulate size is different as well. And so here we are after all those cuts using the same blades. Again, you can see there how much smaller this is than when it started. So at some point, this is going to be a throwaway, which is really not that far away because as you know, as you're cutting, the more it gets in the way and you can't make your full cut. You can see when we were doing the 1-inch tubing, even with a full blade is a pain in the tail. But definitely when you start getting that smaller disc, it becomes more of a pain to finish those cuts. And so you end up taking this off and throwing it away even before it's time. But it's getting close to that point now, or you can run it all the way down to that hub. But again, that's going to happen quicker and quicker. And just to show you here, let's see if we've had any wear on the diameter size, and that's 0. I mean, I don't see any, there's no size difference at all after those, I don't know, 40, 50 cuts that we made on there. And they're claiming 3,000 cuts. So, who knows? Maybe, depending on what you're cutting. But you can definitely tell that even after those, 30, 40, 50 cuts that we made, there's absolutely no size difference. Whereas the abrasive wheel is definitely starting to whittle away. All right, here's the deal. The OK Diamond Metal Plus wheels, they last a long time. You can make tons and tons of cuts with these. We did not make 3,000 cuts to test that, but do I believe it would make 1,000 cuts? Yeah, it probably will. Depends on what type of material you're cutting. Now, is it faster than an abrasive blade? No, I don't think you're going to find anything as far as cutting on an angle grinder that's faster than an abrasive blade. However, what an abrasive blade does, it wears away, you continually change them, as well as they can fragment and come all to pieces, and that's not going to happen on the OK Diamond Metal Plus wheel. Again, if you don't care about any of that and you just want to continue to buy these wheels and replace them all the time, you can do that. Also, all that particulate from this wheel is going airborne. We know this thing's spinning at 8,500, 9,000, 10,000 RPM, and all of that stuff that this wheel is made out of is going airborne and probably going in your nostrils or in your mouth or wherever else. So not a bad idea to wear a respirator either. You know about those black gooey things you pull out of your nose after grinding or welding all day. Anyway, sorry to be kind of graphic with that. Anyway, so price. For an abrasive wheel, you're probably going to spend a few bucks a piece on it if you're buying it at the box store. If you're going to your welding store and buying them in bulk, then you may be down to a couple of bucks a piece, or buying them online, a couple of bucks a piece. But anyway, you're going to pay a couple to a few bucks a piece. Sometimes I see them for $5 and $8 a piece. Don't buy your wheels for that expensive of a price. For the OK Diamond wheel, I think you can buy one wheel for like $16 on Amazon. You can also check out their website. And then I think you can buy a 2-pack for like $22, so you can definitely get that price down. And then you're not changing out the wheels all the time, and it's going to last you a long time. So be sure to check it out. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, then give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.